seminar is brought to you by the Grace Hill Place Hospital. We're located at Otefe, Lagos, Nigeria. The Grace Hill Place Hospital is operated by the managers and partners of Grace Hill Behavioral Health Services Limited. So, what I'm going to do briefly is that I'm going to talk a bit about the hospital, and that's the Grace Hill Behavioral Health Services, and who I am, just in case we're meeting for the first time. The Grace Hill Place Hospital, operated by the managers and partners of Grace Hill Behavioral Health Services, is a hospital that is a specialized hospital focused primarily on mental health services and addiction treatment services. Our goal is to ensure that people recover from crisis in dignity. Um, People are able to manage and enjoy their daily life seamlessly. That's our goal as we attend to our patients, and these individuals continue to impact society positively with their unique passions, gifts, callings, and talents. Now, I feel a need to do this because at the end of this webinar, once I'm done with my talk, I'm going to take in questions, and I may not have time to go a lot into all of that after we're done. So, just in case we're meeting for the very first time, I am Dr. Otefe Edebi. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and a psychologist. I'm the medical director of Grace Hill Behavioral Health Services, located in Otefe, Lagos, Nigeria. I graduated from med school. My med school was University of Benin. I did my master's degree in psychology from the University of Lagos. I'm a fellow of the Postgraduate College, that's National Postgraduate College of Nigeria, the Faculty of Psychiatry. I'm a member of the Employee Assistance Professional Association of Nigeria. I'm certified NEBOSH occupational health and safety personnel. And like I said earlier, I'm the managing director of the medical director of Grace Hill Place Hospital. So this evening, that's a bit about myself. This evening, or this afternoon, or this morning, like I said, wherever you are watching this video, we'll be talking about essentials for building mental resilience. Essentials for building mental resilience for optimum productivity. And therefore, we will be looking at what is mental health and why is your mental health important. Also, we'll talk about what is resilience and what it is not. We'll look at common ways people cope with stress, cope with challenging situation, cope with trauma, and cope with distressing situation that are maladaptive. And then we'll also look at signs and symptoms of anxiety and depression, because many times when people go through challenging situations, those are two key things that often arise: depression and anxiety. And then finally, we will look at essential tools for optimum productivity. Our objective this evening will be to give proper understanding to what it means to be mentally healthy. Number two, it will be to identify signs and symptoms of unhealthy and maladaptive coping processes. And the final objective of our conversation today will be to promote resilience processes and healthy adaptive outcomes in order to achieve healthy and adaptive outcomes. I would like to start with a story by I think it was Sushiro Honda, the famous founder of the Honda Corporation. Now, the story goes that at the age of 15, I think, he left home and started a job, and grew up in a very loving family. They were not very rich, but in his own words, was a very loving environment. Now, this man went on. He had passion for technical things, for mechanical things, and at some point he designed the piston, and he wanted to sell this design that he had in his mind. He wanted to sell it to Toyota, but back then Toyota did not feel that it met their specifications. So what they did was that they rejected his offer and they rejected him. Well, they rejected his offer. Let me not say they rejected him. And then he went back to school, and then he came out of school, spent 2 years in school, and came back and eventually got employed and was going. Things were going fine. Things were going well. But at some point, Sushiro Honda decided to start his own company. So when he started his own company, at the time they were about to build their factory, the Japanese government, that was during World War II, so they were already prepping for the World War II. And back then, the Japanese government was the one responsible for providing concrete for them to build their factory. Now, the story has it that because they were preparing for war, they couldn't really focus on providing concrete at that time. Now, Sushiro did not despair because they did not have that capacity, or the government was no longer going to provide concrete for them. What he did was that he came up with a method to create their own concrete. So they made their own concrete, and they went ahead to build their own company despite the limitation. Now, fast forward a little bit, the war started, and during the war, it is said that twice their factory was bombed, and it affected the factory seriously. But you see, what they did was that after the factory was bombed, they were devastated, but they went out and they picked the cans, I guess the cans from the bomb shells and all of that. They picked it, and he called it gifts from President Truman, because those were materials they needed to now start a new line of business, to create something that they did not have. So this is an adverse situation, and then he takes that situation, he takes those shells. Somebody else will look at that shell and say, okay, this is a reminder of where we are coming, how they destroyed us, but he saw it as a gift, and he used that to build something. Mind you, during this period also, because of the war, most of Sushiro's skilled employers had to be recruited in the army. So he lost a lot of skilled men. Now, he still did not despair. So he had to now work with unskilled people. In that situation, what Sushiro did was that they became innovative, and then they started automation of a lot of factory processes. That way, you don't have to be very skilled or very talented to be able to do what those people did. Now, so this is this man going through a lot of challenges, a lot of tough times. As if that was not enough, then came an earthquake and finally leveled their factory. You've gone through first bombing, second bombing, they've taken your best skilled people, now an earthquake, natural disaster. At some point, someone just said, you know what, I give up. But it leveled them. Japan was in serious hardship in that period, and then there was scarcity of fuel. So Sushiro couldn't access fuel for his vehicle. So you know what he did? He went back and started using his bicycle. So this is someone that had a big organization, had a relatively, I would say, I don't know, but I guess he had a relatively comfortable life. But then he went back and started riding his bicycle so that he could provide for his family. That's go get groceries and all of that. At some point, Sushiro, he dawned on him that, look, okay, I'm riding my bicycle, but I could attach an automobile or a machine. I don't know what they call it exactly, but he attached it to his bike, and then he created something. And then his neighbors, they saw that this bicycle had been improved and has been upgraded. So they started requesting for it. And then that birthed the idea that led Sushiro to go seek. He went out, he sent a personal letter to 18,000 bicycle makers in Japan, and told them that, look, we could all rebuild Japan. Japan is going through a tough time. He has gone through tough time, and he shared his vision. 5,000 people bought into his idea, and this led to what was called the Super Cub, and a bike, a special bike, and it went on. So despite all of these challenges that this person had, he made the best use of his challenges, and he went on to build one of the world's largest automobile manufacturing company as we know it today, the Honda Corporation. It was Anthony Robbins who said, one of the most important decisions you can make to ensure your long-term happiness is to decide to use whatever life gives to you in the moment. So the conversation today is basically focusing on, how do I build my mental resilience? Because so for me, Sushiro's story kind of captures what we're going to be talking about today, that he was clearly resilient through all of these setbacks, through all of these shortcomings, through all of these traumatic experiences. I don't think this conversation we're having today is just primarily for the season that we find ourselves. Yes, the whole world is in a time of the COVID pandemic and the antecedents and the consequences that has come with it, the economic consequence, the health consequence, the relationship consequence that has come with it. But I think this topic is essential for every season of life. It kind of helps you. How do I build my mental resilience so that I can always be productive regardless of the season? In fact, let me explain it this way. I like to say that imagine the waves, a turbulent wave in the ocean. There's a turbulent wave going on the top of the sea, and there's raging going on, and the ship is tossed to and fro, and all of that. And despite all of that is going on the surface, if you go below the sea, you will have activity going on. Fishes are still swimming, things under, they're calm regardless of the storm that is going on top of the sea. So how do I achieve that as an individual? How do I build my mental resilience? How do I put myself in that place, and go through various challenges? It could be grieving from a loved one. It could be that you lost somebody. It could be that you lost a job. It could be that, your finances are being threatened. It could be whatever it is. How do I build my mental resilience? That's a conversation we'll be having today. But let's start out with some definitions here. So what is mental health? Now, many times people often mistake, when you hear mental health, they think of mental illness. They think about you have to be sick and all of that. But by definition, by the World Health Organization, mental health is simply a state of well-being in which you are able to realize your own ability. Number two, it is your capacity to cope with the normal stresses of life. Number three, it is your capacity to work productively, and one says even fruitfully. And number three, it is your capacity or your ability to make your own contribution to your community. So you see that mental health has nothing to do with the presence or the absence of mental illness. So that's not what mental health is all about. If your mental health is not in a good place, why is it important? Why is your mental health important? Like I said, mental health is responsible for your behavior, your thinking, and your mood. There's a saying we often say in the mental health space. We say there is no health without mental health, because your mood, your thinking, your behavior is all a part of your mental health. Number two, the World Health Organization stresses that it is more than just the absence of mental disorders or disabilities. So you could be mentally healthy even though you have a mental illness. I'll say that again. You could have a mental illness yet be mentally healthy if you are well adjusted, if you are able to cope with the normal stresses of life, if you are able to work productively, if you are able to contribute to your community, and if you are able to achieve and maximize your potential. Yet you could have no mental illness and still be mentally unhealthy. It's just like you could not have any physical illness but be physically unfit. So that also applies. So your mental health is quite important. And finally, mental illness now, and in particular common mental disorders such as depression and anxiety, are the most frequent causes of occupational disability. That's why your mental health is important. Now, we're saying today, I'm talking about productivity, optimizing your productivity. So let me kind of define what productivity means as far as this conversation is concerned. So your productivity, this is one definition I saw, and it captures what we are talking about today. It says it's a measure of the efficiency of a person, of a machine, of a factory, of a system, etc., in converting inputs into useful outputs. So it could be that you went through a tough time through life. that can be seen as an input. That experience, you can use it for a beautiful output. So that is what productivity is about, and that's what we are focusing on. How do I take my mental resilience and optimize my productivity? So what then is mental resilience? There are a lot of definitions. A lot of people have put up definitions about mental. So I'm going to just go through some that are quite interesting here. It says the ability to bounce back from adversity, from frustration, and from misfortune. It's also the developable capacity, so you can develop your mental resilience. I'll talk about that a bit more very soon. To rebound or to bounce back from adversity, from conflict, from failure, or even positive events. So it could be that, well, I have been promoted. I'm now in a new position, or I just had a baby. It's a good thing. So it's not always a bad thing. But how do, and it says even positive events progress and increase responsibility. So it could be positive, it could be progress, it could be increased responsibility. How the capacity to bounce back and address this and be well productive even in spite of that. And then it's a stable trajectory of health functioning after highly adverse event. Then I like this last one. It says the capacity of a dynamic system to adapt successfully. So in putting it all together, mental resilience is simply your capacity to positively adapt in a healthy way. Very important, in a healthy way, to positively adapt in a healthy way and thrive in challenging circumstances. So I like to put it this way. It's not just about saying I survived. It's saying that I came out victorious. If you don't, it's not just surviving, not just saying I went through the process, but I came out better. That is what mental resilience is about. It's just like when you throw the ball from this height and you throw it down. If the ball hits the ground, it's most likely, sometimes, not all the time, will bounce back, sometimes higher than the height it dropped from. So that's what mental resilience basically. So we have the definitions, we've taken definitions out of place. Now, what mental resilience is not, because we've talked about what it is, but let me quickly say what is not. Now, mental resilience is not an outcome. It's a process. What do I mean? So it's not just enough to say, for example, someone says, oh, I've gone through a heartbreak, or I've lost someone before, or I've lost a job before, or I've gone through an adversity. Sometimes people go through but I'm still here. Sometimes people get to the other side, but they have adjusted poorly. They get to the other side. So it's not just about the outcome. It's not just saying that, oh, I got to the other side. It's about how you went through the process. There's a process. If you grieve properly and you went through the process properly, you will come. It's not just about the outcome, but it's about the process. Number two, it's not just a position. So it's not some mental resilience is not something like you say, okay, now by the end of this conversation, today is like, now I am mentally resilient, or I have built mental resilience. You can be resilient today, but not necessarily, or in this situation, but not necessarily resilient in another situation. So it's not a position you kind of attain. It's more of like a disposition that you maintain, that shows in your thoughts, in your behavior, and in your action. And finally, mental resilience is not passive coping. It's not just waiting for it to pass. Like right now, some people are waiting for the normal to return. Some people may just be waiting for something to just waiting for that job to come to you, or just waiting for, some people who struggle with anxiety, they just hold on there and say, I'm just waiting for it to pass. I'm just going to cope. I'm just going to cope. Or it may be that you're in an abusive relationship and you are just passively coping. No, it is actually an active response. And the active response helps you to mitigate the behavioral, the cognitive, the emotional impact that the stressor will normally have. So it's not just a passive response, it's an active response. Now, finally, yes, some people may seem more resilient, may have some characteristics, some traits that makes them look like, oh, this guy is strong mentally, is a tough person. Someone say, I'm emotional. I'm emotional, making it sound like, okay, I don't have those traits. Now, yes, there may be some level of nature that that kind of confers on you some level of mental resilience, but it's important to also know that it can be nurtured. So I may not naturally be a strong person per se. I may always be the kind of person that when adversity occurs, I'm slow to change. I always react very badly, and all of that. But it is something that can be nurtured. In other words, this resilience can be taught. It can actually be developed. And that's why we're having this conversation today. So let me talk about some, like I said, we're going to look at some ways people cope that they say they are coping, but it's not very effective. You are not really adjusting well. You may be going through the process. Remember, I said that it's not just about the outcome. It's not just about, oh, I got to the other side. For example, someone loses a job, then finally gets another job, but through the process, he didn't really learn anything, didn't acquire anything. So once that situation happens again, he's back in the same state. He has not really learned through any process. He's just waiting, just waiting. So when we talk about maladaptive behaviors, these are really in the short term, many maladaptive coping strategies, like we call it, how people cope, is that in the short term, it kind of feels good. It helps you, maybe just be passive, just avoid. And those are some of the things. So it helps you in the short term, but in the long term, it doesn't really help you to adjust fantastically. So these are some of the ways people often coping strategies that are not very healthy. Number one, some people use drugs. They take alcohol, they take whatever, and just kind of block out everything. You just in that moment, when you feel overwhelmed with the emotion, you just say, what, I can't deal. I just can't deal. Let me just block it out. Now, when you do that repeatedly, it kind of begins to block the normal process. Remember, it's not about the outcome, it's about the process. It's an unhealthy way of coping, because often I always like to say this. Even, let's say you are going through a difficult relationship, then you start abusing drugs to help you cope. The drug, you could get addicted, and drugs never say this. Drugs never say, oh, this guy is a good guy. Oh, it's not like he is a bad person. He came to us because he really has genuine problems. It's not like James. James is a bad boy. James came to us to experiment. This one actually has a legitimate reason. He's trying to cope through life. You will get hooked. And when you get hooked, then you find out you're struggling with your life. Another way people often cope is that they avoid the situation. I just can't deal. Just with alcohol too, or drugs, you just avoid. You are going through a challenging stuff. You are going through a difficult time. You just say, what, I would rather not deal. And kind of close to avoidance, it's withdrawal. Some people deal with their challenges by going into their shell. When you try to pressure them, they just recoil and go into a shell and withdraw. Rather, they just withdraw. And we're going to look at healthy ways and essential processes. So when we talk about processes, they are not just things you do once. They are things you work on and it gets better. Another way people often deal that's not very effective is to be passively aggressive. It's like you are resisting, but you are passive about it. You are kind of avoiding, withdrawing. You are not speaking up. You are not saying your mind, but you are kind of aggressive. And sometimes what you find out here is that you find somebody exploding, and then you are wondering what really happened. Another way is something called unrestrained display of feelings, what the people we call the dramatic ones. Some people, rather than have a conversation, they feel if I throw myself on the ground, or I tell someone I kill myself, or just say, okay, I'm going to harm myself, just like deliberate self-harm, which is the next one. I'm going to do something, or I'm just going to talk anyhow. We just pour out my mind and speak anyhow and just say it as it is. Now, it kind of helps in that moment, but the problem here is that in the long term, sometimes it damages relationship, and then you have bigger problems to deal with. So these are common ways people often deal with their difficult times that is not very healthy. or not very helpful in the long term. So I said we're going to talk about some of signs and symptoms of depression. Signs and symptoms of depression. So some of the signs of depression is that you have a negative view of yourself. You feel that everybody's better than you. Everybody's doing well. You are the least. You are no good. There's nothing good about you. Or negative view about the world. The world is bad. The world is evil. Nothing good out of the world. Or negative view about the future. There's no hope. You can't see a future. You just feel that nothing is going to work out. Then you experience low moods. You feel sad. You feel unhappy. Weepy spells. You just find yourself crying, feeling guilty, feeling hopeless, feeling helpless. It's almost like nothing is ever going to work out for you. Those are signs of depression. You feel easily fatigued, reduced energy. Sometimes you even have ideas of, what, let me just end my life. Or is it not just better I die? You know, Reduce interest in previously pleasurable activities. These are some signs. When you see them, these are signs that may tell you that you may just be struggling with depression. So when it comes to anxiety, people have the fear of the worst happening. Oh, things will never return to normal. Things will always be bad. What if this? What if that? Just imagining the worst case scenario. Fear of losing control. Fear of being embarrassed. Overestimating the level of the threat. You see the situation and then you are painting out this catastrophic picture about how things will play out. Then also underestimating your capacity to handle. I can't deal. I just can't deal. You're blowing out the thing out of proportion and kind of minimizing your own capacity to cope with the challenge. You find yourself, maybe sometimes it can play out. Now, these are just general signs of anxiety. It can also play out in the fear of dying, fear of someone dying. It could be you dying or someone dying, just constantly afraid. Find yourself, your hands trembling, always tensed. You feel dizzy, feel lightheaded. Sometimes you experience indigestion, just the discomfort in your tummy, or you may find yourself really going to the toilet quite frequently and unable to relax and just be tense. So, having said all of that, let's go into the meat of today. We've talked about signs and symptoms of anxiety, signs and symptoms of depression. We've talked about common maladaptive ways coping strategies that people often take, and we've laid some foundation in terms of our definitions and all that. So what are effective tools? What are the processes? I'm going to talk about 10, not in any particular order. So number one is information. Information is I'm talking about how do you deal with stressful periods? How do you get through it? Not just get through it, but get through it and not just become a survivor, but come out victorious. Information is a powerful, resilient tool. Have you ever wondered why is it the first pregnancy usually, like most times, like the most difficult, or the first baby, like the most difficult, raising the first child can be quite challenging. You start a new job, a new role. In the beginning, it looks very stressful. I don't know about you, but I remember starting a particular job, and the first few months of starting that job, I was having sleepless nights. My blood pressure was going up. It was a new role. I had more money, but I remember even jokingly I wasn't joking. I told someone, I said, okay, let me show you my blood pressure to show you what normal looks like. And then I checked my blood pressure and realized my blood pressure had gone up. So I was stressed. I was tensed. Why do you even think the whole COVID situation is challenging? Because it's new. You've heard us say the professionals say over and over again, it's a novel thing. It's a novel thing. It's a novel virus. Addressing the situation is novel to us. Addressing is novel to the medical practitioners. It's new. So when something is, and I'm stressing this because all of these scenarios is that you are not informed. When you have information about something, you are a bit more resilient about it. I always like to say this, that look, if you go write an exam, two people go write an exam, one person goes into the hall, comes out, says the exam was tough. Another person goes into the same hall, comes out and says the exam was easy. Now, is it the exam itself that was tough or the information the person had? So one thing you want to do is that in every situation of life, you want to get information. Remember the story of Sushiro Honda. He didn't despair. He didn't say, "Oh, he didn't go into any despair." The story has it that he went back to school. I'm not necessarily saying it's a school thing, but I'm saying be informed. Information is very powerful. Information kind of makes that difficult situation less stressful, less challenging. Maybe you are going through a challenging relationship. I mean, thank God we now have Google. We now have information everywhere. You could search, could ask someone, how do I deal with this kind of situation? Just having information can change how that process. You don't just go through the process. You don't just wait through the process, but you actively go seek out information, and that can help you through your challenging situation. Before I move on to the next point, I want to also stress that it's also be careful with misinformation, because as information is also powerful, so getting the wrong information can be very risky, can cause a lot of harm. How when he came to the hospital, he said, "Doc, I've been to so many places in the spiritual life and seeing information challenge you are going through. Go seek out information. Be active in getting informed. Improve, get something, and that will help you through your challenging time." The second thing, something that's called reevaluation. Now, every event, every challenge we go through is in itself neutral. I'll take that again. Every event, every challenge we go through is in itself. It presents to you, it's in itself neutral. It is what you focus on and the interpretation you give to that event that creates the feeling that you experience. So, Shotiro had his factory bombed. He took that as a gift. He took the cans and he rebuilt. He reevaluated the situation. So you need to look at that situation. It said that one of the best gifts you can give to any person, to a human being, is something called the gift of perspective. If you just flip the way you see that situation, you ask yourself, what can I be grateful for? How else can I see this problem? Some people are so scared of failure. I used to be like that. One of my greatest fear growing up was to fail, because I saw things like black and white. You fail, it's like the world has finished. I was afraid to fail in a relationship. Luckily, thank God, I didn't. But I was so scared that you ask somebody out and it doesn't work out. But just the fear of failure. But there's something someone said. He said, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So a mistake is not made until you don't learn from it. If you learn from the event, then it's not really a mistake. It's a learning. So reevaluate the situation. You may need to look at your current structure right now, going through things. Reevaluate, how can we restructure? Because with reevaluation also comes restructuring. So you want to look at that situation. There's something I'm going to leave with you, EAIU. So the way you reevaluate something is by questioning it. Looking and saying to yourself, how else can we see this? So for example, you can say, what is the evidence? What facts do we have? A stands for alternatives. What is the alternative way to look at this problem? How else can I see this problem? One person loses his job, he says it's the end of the world. Someone else loses their job. Remember Sushiro Honda, he lost his factory, started using a bike. Then he looked at the bicycle and said, I can do something from this. So you want to reevaluate that situation. You want to learn the art of always asking yourself, how else can I look at this? I may have lost my job. How else can I look at this? I may have lost a loved one. How else can I look at this? Should I look at, when I remember my loved one, should I only say, oh, the person has gone? Or can I look back and say, what a fantastic life the person lived? Just by flipping how I interpret the situation, just by flipping what I focus on, can literally change how I feel. So that's one way. And then I said E is for evidence. What is the fact? A for alternatives. I is the implication. What is the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that can happen? And then U is the usefulness of what I am thinking, the usefulness of how I see it. Someone said that if someone was sent to a place to sell shoes, and then he got to this salesman, got to this village or this place, and he discovered that nobody wears shoes in that place, and then he panicked and he sent to the headquarters, sent a message back to the headquarters and said, "Please get me out of this place. Nobody wears shoes." Then somebody else, another salesman, was sent to the same place. He got to the village. He saw that nobody wears shoes in that place. Then he sent a message back to the factory and to the headquarters, and he said, "Please send more cartons of shoes or more trailer loads of shoes. Nobody here wears shoes." So he looked at the situation. One person sees it as a half full situation. Somebody else looks at it as a half empty situation. So how do you see the glass? How do you see the situation? What are you focusing on? How are you interpreting the event? Learn that art of always asking, when you go through tough times, you go through difficult times, it's not just enough to go through the period, just waiting to get to the other side. Say to yourself, how do I look at this? What can I learn? What can I improve? What do I need to restructure? The third thing is connection. Connection, very important. Even though we do well all by ourselves, to build one of the strong things that builds strong resilience is to be able to connect with people. I like to say this: don't travel alone. Don't go through life trying to do everything all by yourself with the knowledge you have. Connect with people. It's very important that you intentionally learn the art of developing your relationships, especially before crisis period. So it's not like during crisis period, because it's not just enough to have family around you. It's not just enough to have a group around you. So you could be in a group but not be connected. So I'm not just talking about having people around you, because I've seen people, they say, okay, we are 10 kids, we are 22 kids, and are people close? No, we are not close. So it's not just enough to just have people around you. You must intentionally learn the art of connection. And when I talk about connection, so they are basically, you must have friends, people you connect with, people that can talk to you, that you can talk to when you are going through difficult times. In fact, someone puts it this way: people that are so close to you that they can hear your voice even when you are silent. That's the way you want to connect. And you also want to look at connecting with mentors. In times like this, sometimes it's very easy when you have people ahead of you going through a tough time and you've had someone go through it. It makes it easier. It makes it kind of, that thing that looks so big to you can be simplified when you have a mentor. So learn to connect. The fourth thing is something called affirmations. Now, this is basically speaking positive phrases or positive statements. And sometimes you do this to challenge negative, unhelpful thoughts. So you are affirming, you are speaking positive things about yourself. I'm strong. I'm going to come out of this better. I'm going to do well. I'm going to thrive in spite of the challenges, whatever. You are just speaking to yourself. Some people find this a bit awkward. Some people say, how would I just be talking to myself and praising myself? Because for them, it's like, I'm saying things that are not real, or I'm saying things that are not true, or I am saying things I don't feel like saying. You don't have to feel like saying it, but learning the art of affirmations, especially to silence those negative thoughts. When those thoughts come and say you are not good enough, you don't deserve this, it's not your type, you are not qualified for such things. You need to learn the art of affirming yourself. I'm good enough. I'm qualified for the best things. Those are things that literally build your self-esteem. I'm going to, I'm 1,000 times more, whatever. Just find some things that work for you. Now, some practice the art in terms of aligning it with their faith. That's fantastic. Whatever works for you, but I think that's also very effective. Align it, but find words and speak to yourself. Speak to yourself, I'm coming through this. So don't just, in a time like this, let me digress a bit and say, and be a bit specific. In a time like this, we're going through the COVID pandemic. So some people just spend their time and their energy going all negative about all the negative impact and the negative things, and they are describing their situation and they feel very comfortable with it. But you see, if you want to be strong, mentally resilient, you have to learn the art of actually saying affirmative words to yourself. It's not a gimmick. Trust me, it's not a gimmick. It is an art. We're talking about processes. We're not just talking about the outcome. It's not just, I'm going to wade through all of this. I'm going to go through all of this and get to the other side. No, when I'm going through the process, what am I doing? So learning the art of speaking and affirming yourself, it's a powerful tool to build your mental resilience. The fifth thing is being organized, or organization, being organized, learning the art of time management, the art of planning. You wonder, what does this have to do with mental resilience? How does being organized? Remember, I said mental health is not just about your mental illness or the presence or the absence of mental illness. So it's your capacity to be productive, your capacity to optimize your potential, your capacity to contribute to your community. Now, being organized. There was a research done in 2018. They took this 114 women. This research was done for like between January to July. They took 114 women. Guess what? This research was done in Wuhan. So great things to come from Wuhan. Of course, we know that. I'm just kidding. Now, but it was done in 114 women. 58 were the experimental group, and then 56 were the control group. So what they basically did was that they took these women through training on time management and all of that, and the other group did not receive any form of time management training. Now, this is what they found out. At the end of the whole 7 months period, those who practiced the whole being organized, being better organized, because I've heard people say in stressful times like this, my job is overwhelming. So people are either feeling overwhelmed or underwhelmed. Some people, like, there's nothing to do. Wake up every morning, they're like, there's no place to go to, especially during the lockdown. There's nothing to go, nowhere to go to. So they're bored, they're kind of have nothing to do. They're used to people giving them their own schedule. They're not used to creating their own schedule. And some people are working from home. They have to teach their kids, unlike before when they sent them to school. Now you have to teach your own kid by yourself if you are in that category, like me, and so they are overwhelmed. They're working from, someone told me, see, Doc, I've been awake since like 6 a.m. and I'm likely going to work till like 11. I'm just going to be work. Now, in this research, what they found out was that at the end of the research, they did something called the self-rating anxiety scale and the self-rating depression scale for both groups. Now, all they did for one group was they taught them how to manage their time, how to plan, how to be more organized. And for the other group, they were not taught anything. They just went on through life like as usual. Now, this is what they found. And then they also did something called the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index and Time Management Disposition Inventory Score. That was just used to measure their sleep quality. So they were looking at their sleep quality, they were looking at their anxiety level, they were looking at their depressive scale. And this is what they found. Very remarkable. They found out that there was a positive correlation that existed between improvement in time management disposition, and the improvement in anxiety, in depression, and sleep quality. So to be mentally resilient is not just to wade through the process, not just to say, okay, I'm just going to wade through the process and get to the other side. No, you have to learn the art of being a bit organized, learn to structure your life, learn to plan. And like I said, I'm not just talking about this era, I'm just saying generally in life, to be mentally resilient, to be able to function and optimize productivity, you have to learn the art of organization. The sixth one is confrontation. So let me just quickly say this. Well, I'm going to be rounding up this conversation in the next 15 minutes, hopefully. And after that, I would expect us to you could send in your questions, then I could then take specific questions. Now, the sixth process, or the sixth tool I want to talk about, something called confrontation. Now, you remember I mentioned that some people deal with their stressors by avoidance, by withdrawing, by being passive aggressive. Now, on the confrontation, there's a concept called being assertive. Now, the concept of assertiveness says that you are important and so am I. Being passive says, you are important, but I'm not. Being aggressive says, um, you are not important, I am important. So many times we fall into that three groups, and it's because many of us struggle with our self-esteem. There's a lot of challenge. Many of us have unhealthy self-esteem. Myself inclusive. But the art of mental resilience building, remember I said, it's something that you may not necessarily be nature may not have conferred it on you, but it can be nurtured. You can literally develop it. So you must learn the art of confronting your challenges, confronting your problems, taking action. Don't just lay low and just accept it. You need to take action. Sometimes you may say, oh, I don't like conflicts. You must learn the art to be able to go into conflicts, be comfortable in conflicts, not being aggressive, but being assertive. You must learn how to take actions, because if you stay passive through the situation, or you avoid the situation and all of that, you kind of worsen the situation in the long term. You may feel comfortable immediately, but you may have some form of resentment. So you have people, they've gone through traumatic experiences, they didn't confront it, they didn't confront their fears, they didn't confront their challenges, they didn't confront what they were going through. They went through it, yes, but they came out resentful, angry, all of that, and not functioning well. So sometimes if you have to go past that, you have to learn how to confront. The seventh thing is something called the art of meditation. Now, before it gets all spooky and say what is meditation about? Well, yes, there's some level of, I would say, some kind of, there's when you talk about meditation, there's spirituality that has to do with meditation, definitely. Mental resilience is both a biopsychosocial thing and a spiritual thing. When you talk about mental resilience, spirituality has been known to help people walk through their depression, walk through substance abuse, walk through, to literally change behavior, maladaptive behavior. So, but meditation just simply means putting your focus on something, someone, or some phrase. That's basically it. Now, there are different types of meditation. So find what matches your values. Very important. So it's not just hearing that, okay, someone just talks about meditation, and you could, if it's comfortable for you, you could do what they call the Asian or the Mediterranean, I think, yeah, the meditation. But then there are other forms of meditation. It's not only that, because many times many people who teach meditation always want to focus on what the Asians do, but it's not always comfortable for everybody, because some people are not comfortable with it. Doesn't rhyme with their values, it doesn't rhyme with their faith. But meditation is an effective tool. In fact, let me give you this. I told one of my patients recently, so she's struggling with anxiety, and I said to her, you know what, just take so you have this they have this mantra in a faith, and a Christian faith, and the group she belongs to, they have this thing they pray with, the rosary and all of that. And I said, next time you have a panic attack, just repeat those words and focus on it, and focus on it. That's meditation. Focusing, bringing your mind to bear on something, either a phrase or something. Research has shown that it reduces anxiety. It makes you better, more relaxed. So it is a research proven art, and something that you can walk through. There's also something called meditative prayer. So you are going through a difficult situation, learn to just find time to just spend that time to pray, if that works for you. That's also part of meditation, because sometimes out of meditation comes inspiration. And to go through life challenges, sometimes you need an inspired thought, an inspired word, or whatever. So meditation is also an effective tool. The eighth thing I'm going to talk about is learn to relax. Calm down, slow everything down, shut everything down, go to sleep. Just literally go to sleep, or take out time, stop the whole activity. Sometimes activity is not synonymous with productivity. So you can be very, very active everywhere, up and about, but you're not necessarily productive. So you must learn the art of learning to just relax, or sometimes learn not to take yourself too seriously. Now I'm not saying become indulgent and be lazy, but learn to just slow down every single thing. Practice the deep breathing exercise, whatever, but just calm down. The ninth thing is imagination. Now, image, you know, I wrote down something here that something I read somewhere. It says that research shows that there's a role that images play in your mood, and that guided imagery can improve your mental health. So, also, so it's also called visualization. You know, take time when you are going through a tough time. I was talking with someone last week, I think this week, sometime this week. Lovely person. She called and said to me that, Doc, I just felt like talking to someone. I just felt like talking to someone. I'm going through. So she listed a lot of things, problems that were like, wow, how how do you begin to advise this person? How do you, she was talking and talking, and I was just calm and I was listening, and the first few minutes, I really didn't have an answer. I was like, I almost responded, if you ask me, now what I go ask? If you understand, if you know, you know. But I was almost at that point. But then one of the first things I said to her was, if you were just to shut down everything and just imagine how you would want your life to be. I love something a friend of mine did recently. He put up a post and said, so he dated the post April 2021 and said, why we look, and here we are now. Last year, April 2020, we felt we were overwhelmed. We felt we were not going to get out of it. But here we are stronger, all of that. So use your mind. Just the same way your mind creates this negative, catastrophic picture of the future. Someone said that if no one, and I like this, listen to this. Someone said, if the person did not precisely predict the current situation that we are in, which is the COVID situation, please, he doesn't have authority and custody to predict the outcome. Because some people, after 9/11, some people say, oh, they'll never build skyscrapers again. Things will never return back to normal. Hey, we're back to normal. So some people too have projected that it's going to be so, projected a lot of things. See, going through and dealing with your anxiety, this is the point I'm trying to make. Dealing with your anxiety and dealing with your depression and dealing with the stress that you go through, whether it's the COVID, whether it's something else, take out time to just calm down and imagine a beautiful outcome. Sometimes paint it to someone else, maybe your spouse, maybe your partner, and just say, you know what, we may be going through tough times now, but it's going to be beautiful. Before I take the last point, at this point, I just remembered something that was said about Walt Disney. It said that when it was opened, the story has it that he wasn't there when it was opened. So the person who was opening said to his wife that, oh, how I wish he was here to see this. And the wife said he had seen it. He had seen it in his mind. So paint that beautiful picture. The art of learning to put beautiful pictures in your mind and imagine a beautiful outcome makes you resilient even in the present to go through the difficult times. And the final point is, now, the first time I had this conversation with a small group and I was building this conversation, I took I just came out with 9 essentials, processes. But after that conversation, I realized that there was one more that I should add, and it's called forgiveness. Now, you may wonder, are we in church? Are we in a religion? No. See, let me say this to you. Some years back, I was a resident. I was going through my training in neuropsychiatric hospital, Ara Belkta at that time. And in one of these days, I was at what we call the A&E, the accident and emergency, to receive patients. And this man walked in. So let's just call him Mr. Mark. Mr. Mark walked in, and I had the privilege to be the one to attend to him on that day. And he told me a story. So Mr. Mark, I think if I remember the story clearly, I'm just going to say it, I don't have to be very concise, but he said how he had gotten married. I think it was in his 20s when he got married. In his first year of marriage, his wife cheated on him, and it was devastating for him. And then Mr. Mark said, but he forgave his wife. Good guy, forgave his wife. Then years later, like 11 years into the marriage, she cheated again. So maybe she has been cheating, maybe whatever, but she cheated again. But at this time, he had had enough. So they broke up. Now, at the time I was meeting Mr. Mark, he was 50 years old. If I remember clearly, it was like 15 years thereabout after he had broken up. Now, when Mr. Mark was still married, he was a banker doing well for himself. As at 50, Mr. Mark was, I think, an accounting teacher, not doing so well. And one of the things he told me that day was that he said, since after that experience, now, and I'm going to say something quickly, since after that experience, he never could trust a woman again. Remember, I said it's not just about the outcome, it's about the process. So some people go through difficult situations. Remember, I talked about reevaluation as one way to build your mental resilience. Some people go through difficult situations, but they do not really learn helpful things from the situation. They only learn the negative. Let me, I think I wrote down something somewhere that one of the biggest challenges in anyone's life is knowing how to interpret failures. Many people go through failures and they interpret it quite wrong. They get it all wrong. So, yeah, Mr. Mark was saying, I can never love again and all of that. But the problem here was this. Now, Mr. Mark, I was seeing Mr. Mark in Arrow. Just in case you are listening, you don't know where Arrow is. Arrow is a mental health hospital, specialized for that. Now, Mr. Mark did not have something, it wasn't like he had lost his mind or anything like that. No, but as at that time, Mr. Mark was experiencing something called somatoform disorder or somatic disorder. Soma means body. So he was experiencing, he had gone to various hospitals, had various complaints, headache, not sleeping well, this, that, all of that, but he wasn't getting better. So, one doctor just said, you know what, go to the psychiatric hospital because we've done all the tests, we can't really find anything wrong with you. Go see a psychiatrist. So, yeah, he was now seeing me. And he said to me then that my goal in life is to prove to my ex that I will be someone 15 years later. Mr. Mark, wake up. And that day I realized, and I went to check it. And I said to him that day, I said, Mr. Mark, I think your issue, yes, your diagnosis is somatoform disorder, but it is coming from a place because you have not let go. You've not forgiven. So people go through bitter experiences. Some people go through very tough experiences. Maybe you get sacked from a job, or like I jokingly say, some people you left the job, some other people the job left you. But and you go through tough times, and all you take from that experience is the bitterness, or often I say you are running with bitter fuel or bad fuel. You are trying to prove a point to those who have hurt you, to those who have harmed you, and you've not forgiven. To grow and to be mentally healthy, you have to learn the art of repeatedly letting go. Someone said that when you learn to forgive, you have released a prisoner. I know the interesting thing is that the prisoner you release is not the person or the event, it's you. Because just learning to just say, you know what? It's not just saying, so there's something we call a decisive forgiveness. I think that's because this particular psychologist, I can't remember his name, so sorry about that, but he came up with two concepts. That there's something called decisive forgiveness, where you say, you know what, I've forgiven you, but anytime the person's name on that thing comes up, there's still anger, there's still bitterness, there's still like, I'm going to prove something, but I've forgiven you, but I will still prove something to you. No, you need to come to a place that is called emotional forgiveness, meaning that you can think about that event, you can think about that person and say, you know what, I don't hold anything against you. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to go back and be in lovey-dovey with the person, depending on the situation. But the art of forgiveness is also another powerful process in building your mental resilience. And the art of unforgiveness has kept a lot of people experiencing somatoform illnesses, anxiety, depression, because they have not forgiven. Maybe someone traumatized you growing up, and you're still holding on, and you still see the people not, healing. I think there was this research I saw, but if you just go online, you will see there's a lot of research, there's a lot of evidence that supports that forgiveness is a very powerful tool, a very powerful process in helping your mental resilience. I hope we learned something. Thank you very much. So we're going to go. Yeah, yeah, we stuck to the time. So we're going to just take questions if there are any. I'm going to go off and see the questions. Okay. Okay. Loide Oyewale said, I don't fail, I learn. Failure is a learning process. Yes, fantastic. That's learning to reevaluate the situation rather than see it as a failure, see it as something. Okay, I love this question by Orefe Ogunubi. She said, awesome, Doc. Being confrontational can go wrong, especially when a second party is involved. Are there times we just need to be passive with the situation, individuals or to situation on individual to have our mental health, or do we have to confront every situation? Lovely question. What I would say is this. Now, I talked about different processes. Now, these processes kind of flow into each other. So it's not, it's learning how to know which one to use to go through the process and heal effectively. Now, there are some situations that you should learn to literally walk away, reevaluate, restructure your life, organize yourself differently, and all of that. Um, Whereas there are some situations where you literally have to confront. It may be uncomfortable. Even when you are dealing with someone or dealing with a situation, it may be uncomfortable, but you have to learn the art of also confronting. And when I talk about confrontation, I'm not only just about confronting people, but sometimes you need to confront life itself. You need to know when to say, you know what, I'm going to take action. I'm not just going to sit down here and wait for things to fall on my lap or something to come to me. I'm going to learn the art of going out and confronting my situation. So it's, yeah, it can be dicey sometimes, but learning to just know which one to apply at a certain time. I hope that was helpful. I'm just curious. If you're out there and you're listening and this has been helpful, just write a comment. Just put out a comment. Let's know. Let me know you're out there. Just say hello, hi. It was helpful. Wasn't helpful. Just put out something out there. Even if you are not asking a question. Okay. Thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you, Chinasa. You said highly insightful session. Thank you, Dr. Otefe Edebi. Chinasa Anusimu Wankoth. Yeah. Yeah, Oloyede Oyewale says fear or anxiety is a waste of imagination. Have a positive outlook to life is key. Yeah, it's very important. Yeah, that's good. That's true. So if you're out there, just say something. Okay. Debbie Umenu or Dafe, that's my brother actually, says interesting, like the part on meditating to reduce one anxiety. Yeah. If you're out there, just say something. Let's know. Saying, are there inborn biological factors that could determine how resilient the person is? Yeah, I'd mentioned that earlier that naturally, some people, there are genetic factors to resilience. Yes, in your temperament and all of that, and there are genetic factors. But beyond nature, it can also be nurtured. So the goal of this conversation today is to say that beyond you remember one of the definitions, it says that it's a developable capacity, meaning that I may not naturally have the capacity. I may naturally be someone who is negative. I respond to change in very slow. I'm one of the slow responders of to change, and I don't like to confront things. I like to just stay, withdraw and all that. That may be my genetic makeup, but I can learn the art and be nurtured into someone different, because achieving that helps you to be more resilient. Okay, so says I deal with a lot of people who are always afraid to express themselves, maybe in a team. How can they be helped? Yeah, that's a lovely question. Um, Many times you need to kind of understand where people are coming from. Um, People may have been hurt. People may have a concept that you shouldn't speak up. That's how they've been taught. They shouldn't confront things. So I think sometimes when you are dealing with a group, they are looking out for um, they are looking at you to see the kind of environment that you are creating. So it's very important the kind of environment that you are creating. Like I said earlier, many of us struggle with our self-esteem, and sometimes the self-esteem is what makes people either passive or aggressive. So you could actually learn something called assertiveness, teaching people how to be assertive. um, so in teaching people how to be assertive is teaching them how to understand that they are equally important. That it's not just the leader that's important, that they also are equally important. That, but you see, and you need to make them appreciate that they are not more important. They are equally important. We are equally important. So it's not that if someone wants to express himself, he should now go and be rude and now talk anyhow. And then when he does that and is punished for that, other people say, you see, he has been punished for talking. No, he wasn't punished for talking. He was punished for being aggressive and being rude. So it's teaching people how um, to literally communicate better. So I guess one of the things you can teach people in situations like that is effective communication. You can teach them how to be assertive. You can also help them work on their self-esteem and all of that. So I think that's how you deal with people, because it's a common problem. People don't want to speak up. They're afraid that if I speak up, it will be used against me. I may be laughed at, and all of that. Those are things that come from a lot of baggage. So, but let me clearly say this finally on that is that it's a process. So don't expect like quick results, but be intentional. So intentionally help them learn how to express themselves. That's partly why people do team bonding. Go out and have things that make people loosen up, because sometimes in those settings people are all tensed. We're all in work mode. We're all afraid. So sometimes just do team bonding exercise. That will help people loosen up and help people express themselves. Mowale, yeah, I saw your comments. Said very insightful, very helpful. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so says, is there a way I can be reached? So scrolling on the bottom now, you will see. I guess it will come up soon. You will see a phone number you could call and reach out to me. So it says, yeah, it's there now. For hospital bookings, the employee assistance program for organizations. So for the organizations, what we do is that we send out helpful things on a weekly basis, and then they could also have consultations to discuss issues, emotional issues, behavioral issues, mental health issues, and all of that. So someone also says that's a Kome Ekele Udo says that yes, very helpful. Thank you, sir. Affirmation has always worked for me. Yeah, very important to learn the art of always speaking to yourself, over yourself, speaking positively. It helps your mental health. Yes, I let's keep it coming. I want to see um if just even if all you say is hi, that's encouraging too. Hi doc, I love the aspect of confrontation. It really helps. Fear and anxiety cripples, so we need to confront them boldly in order to succeed or be productive. That's very correct. Some people have maybe fear of flying, fear of this and all that. The way you address anxiety is never to avoid but to confront the situation. So, learn to confront the situation in an assertive way, in gentle, assertive way, and all of that. But don't be passive. Don't just lie down and roll with it. sometimes you need to confront it. Interesting. Thanks for sharing. Godfrey Olise, thank you for listening also. Thank you for tuning in, Godfrey Olise. Yemisi Lawal Adibowale, the power of meditation has been re-echoed. Okay, good, good. I think that's Dr. Yemisi. It's one of the consultants here at Grace Hill. Yeah, just let's keep sending it in. Akin Adigbite, he said, Dog, greetings, very impactful. Akinwale Ashegbite. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Yeah, assertive, right. You are important and so are you. Very important. You are not more important. I'm not less important. We are equally important. So, you know, teaching people that and making them comfortable. Okay, it says I missed the first 2 points. The first point was information. It's a powerful resource. You know, building your information base as you go through life challenges. And the first time you start up, I talked about, sometimes you start up a new job. Initially, it's difficult, but as you begin to understand the job, it becomes less stressful. That's the power of information. So when people go through life challenges, sometimes your biggest mountain or your biggest struggle or what is causing your stress is because you don't have information about the thing. If we knew about COVID, if we have information of COVID, we will not be this distressed by it. So go for information, very important. And the second thing I talked about was re-evaluation, learning the art of interpreting the event properly. Every event in itself is neutral. The interpretation is what matters, and what you focus on is what matters. Dr. Richard Okonkwo says, well done for this great presentation. Mental resilience is a must in the journey of life. Yes, very important. As you go through life, the only time when life, if you see the EKG machine that shows your heartbeat, the only time the line is flat is when you are dead. So that's how life is. It comes with its challenges, it comes with the struggles. So life will come, it will throw things at you, but the person who learns the art of building his mental resilience will go through life cycles, different events, and will keep optimizing productivity. And that's the goal of this whole conversation. um, yeah. Okay, my big auntie, Mrs. Chiadi Undu, thank you for listening. She said, forgiveness cannot be overemphasized. Thank you for making it number 10. Yes, forgiveness is very important in your healing process. I meet a lot of people who have gone through difficult situations, tough times. They survived. But one missing thing in their adjustment is that they did not forgive. So it's not just enough. Like I said, it's not just the outcome, it's about the process. It's learning the art of this thing. That's what makes you resilient. That's what makes you to optimize your potential and to be productive. Thank you so much. Let's just put any questions, comments. Just let me know you are out there. I can't see whether who listening on who didn't listen from where I am. My the crew on the other side, they can, but I can't see. So just let me know you're out there. Kind of gives me, well, I'm encouraged already. Actually, I'm excited already. But just let me know you're out there listening. Okay, so while we're waiting for any more comment or any more question, once again, I'm going to just talk briefly about the hospital. So I said that this webinar was brought to you by the Grace Hill Place Hospital. It's a mental health and addiction treatment facility located at Amuodofin, Lagos, Nigeria. The Grace Hill Place Hospital is operated by the managers and the partners of Grace Hill Behavioral Health Services Limited. Down, you will see how you could contact us. Our aim, I had mentioned this much earlier, but let me just still run through it. Our goal, our purpose is we want to give comprehensive mental health service solutions for everyone. And also, one of our dreams is to be able to provide a platform for all cadres of mental health practitioners to research, to develop, to practice, and to grow the field in Nigeria. To create jobs for particularly here in Nigeria for mental health practitioners. That's our dream, that's our goal, to be globally recognized. And we choose to address people struggling with their challenges, either mental health issues or substance abuse, addiction challenges. Ours, we are committed to helping them to recover with dignity. It's not just to go through the process. Like I said, it's not just the outcome. It's not that, okay, I was ill, now I'm well. The outcome is I'm well. No, it's that even while you go through the process, our desire is to make sure you go through the process with some sense of dignity. So we pay attention to our environment, the setup of our facility. We pay attention to the quality of care. We're a team of professionals, all professionals, psychiatric nurses, clinical psychologists, substance abuse counselors, even occupational therapists, all the works. We're a private facility, but um, that's our goal. Our goal also is to help our clients, our patients, help them to manage and enjoy their lives seamlessly, and also to continue impacting their society. I mentioned that even you may have a mental illness, you may have a substance abuse problem in the past, but that doesn't have to define you. You are not defined by your illness. Our goal is to help you to be able to impact your society positively with your unique passions, your gifts, your talents, your callings. Your health, your addiction shouldn't rob you of that. Thank you so much. I think it's been interesting. I think it has. Okay. Okay. I'm going to do this for you. Okay. So Chinasa says, could you please list out all the mental resilient tools for 1 to 10? Wow, that's a lot. So I'm going to just run through them. Just call them one by one. So number one, I said that information. It's a mental resilient tool. Get informed, be informed, and be careful what you also get, how you get informed, because misinformation can be, as information is empowering, wrong information can be very risky also and disempowering. Number two is re-evaluation. I'd mentioned that one of the greatest gifts you can give to a person is the gift of perspective, helping the person to put the situation in the right perspective. As you look at the situation and say, what can I be grateful for? How else can I look at this? How else can I interpret the situation? I talked about the story of Sushiro Honda. Sushiro literally took the shells that they used to bomb his factory to create more things. He took his difficult situation and changed it for something beautiful. Number three, I talked about connection. Connection is important. So do not go through life all by yourself. Connection is not synonymous with having a lot of people around you. So you could have a lot of people, you could be in a job, could be in a faith group or whatever, but you are not necessarily connected. No. So connection is about having friends, people you can rely on, people you can talk to. Having a mentor, very important. It helps you through difficult times. Your mentor helps you to just put perspective. So your mentor may be someone you have close relationship with. It could be someone you don't necessarily have a close relationship, but having that, don't go through life alone. Number four, I talked about affirmations, the art of speaking positive statements or positive phrases over yourself, affirming yourself is very, very important in learning that art. And number five, I talked about organization, planning, structure. It makes you better resilient. In fact, someone said this. They said, when you take a suitcase and you throw clothes into that suitcase, you know, and then you take that same suitcase and you arrange the clothes before putting them in, you are likely going to have more clothes in the one you organize more than the one you just throw clothes in. So organization makes you better productive, than just being scattered and just, everywhere and anywhere. Activity is not synonymous with productivity. Number six, I talked about confrontation, the art of being assertive, the art of taking action. Don't just sit and go through the process. Take action, be assertive, not passive, not aggressive, but be assertive. Number seven, I talked about meditation. And meditation is to put your mind on something or someone or a phrase or a statement, is to set your mind on that and also as part of meditation is something called meditative prayers. So prayer falls into that group. It's a spiritual tool, but it's very powerful. It's also a mental resilient tool. So you learn that art. You if the common meditation that people, which is the one a lot of research has been done with. There's not disputing. Every form of meditation is quite helpful. And then number 8, I talked about relaxation. Learn to not take yourself too seriously. Learn to relax, learn to calm down, slow things down. And then number 9, I talked about imagination, or something called visualization, using your mind to paint a beautiful picture of the outcome. Go into your future with your mind and paint a lovely outcome. See yourself in that, having that beautiful relationship, even though it's right now it's tough. See yourself driving that car that you want, living the life that you want, having that what they call it now, the organization that you dream of. Use your mind. It keeps you, it calms your presence, it calms the anxiety in the present, and you just know that what, it's going to work out. And number 10, very important, I talked about forgiveness. Forgiveness is quite important. So those are the 10 tools. I hope that was helpful. At this point, we've come to an end of the webinar. Thank you so much for connecting. Thank you for getting on. We will make this video available to those who registered after this. Thank you so much. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, thank you so much as we come. Okay, we have to round up now. So, Komalafeti, Integrity Theophilus, thank you. You said, how do you advise people bring their personal emotions to job interview panel, thereby inhibiting great brands for their company? Well, let them listen to this tape and learn to build better ways to deal with life. Let them learn better ways to deal with life. You don't have control over those who are coming. You have control over yourself. So I can't advise those who are coming. I can advise you that is interviewing them on how to deal with them. Um, so that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Have a lovely day. And that's it from us. Yeah. Thank you, my wonderful team. They're fantastic. They are quiet, but they're doing a lot of work behind. So thank you so much. Yes, and it was done by the Digits Radio. I need to advertise that. I need to also mention that. So thank you, Digits, for this fantastic streaming. Thank you.